Welcome to State of the Plate. My name is Jacqueline Evers, and I'm the Executive Director at the Land Connection. I'm thrilled to be coordinating this event tonight, and State of the Plate is an event that was created by Healthy Champaign County, which is a local nonprofit comprised of community organizations working to promote healthy eating and active living in our community. We have a few members in the audience today, and I'm sure they would love to share more about the group and ways that you can participate if you are interested. So I'm not sure if Tracy and Rick and Blake maybe want to raise Rick's in line. Raise their hands. Oh, and Liz and Sarah too. Thank you guys. So I'm sure they'd love to share more about Healthy Champaign County. Before we get started, I also wanted to take a minute to recognize our sponsor for the evening, which is Martinelli's Market. And if this is your first time here, I encourage you to walk around after the event and check out some of their local products. And they offer quite a bit that you can't find anywhere else in town. So that's one of the special treats about stopping in here. And then I also want to thank Tracy and Sologradia Farm for helping us organize this event and promote it. The format for tonight's event is first brief presentations from our three speakers, Ed, Bailey, and Julie. And then after the presentations, there will be an opportunity for you all to ask questions about some of the policies that are presented or other ones that you're interested in hearing more about. And if we have time at the end, we'd be happy to have you all hang around for a little bit and share in conversation. So our first presenter of the evening will be Ed Dubrick, policy organizer at Illinois Stewardship Alliance. Ed's also a livestock farmer north of here in Cissna Park. If you aren't familiar, Illinois Stewardship Alliance is an alliance of farmers and eaters. Their mission is to find, connect, train, and amplify the leadership of farmers and eaters who use their choices and their voices to shape a more just and regenerative local food and farm system. Their statewide community unites to educate policymakers and form a powerful voice that has a seat at every table where decisions are made. So please join me in welcoming Ed Dubrick.
Thank you. And Jacqueline already read my first slide, so we can skip that one. But yeah, we're a statewide nonprofit. We work with farmers, eaters, food system leaders. If you're not familiar with that food system leader term, we've kind of got a few spelled out here: chef, aggregator, distributor, things like that. So maybe you're not the farmer yourself, you're not the end consumer, but you're the person that's kind of helping connect all those dots in between. So those are the folks, the type of people we work with. And so kind of how that works is, this is actually me, and this is a newspaper article that got published a few years ago on some work we did on farmers market permits and changing the price of those so that way they were, I'll say, more reasonable for farmers of meat, dairy, and eggs. And I came to our group of folks and said, hey, this is a problem I'm facing. We had 20 other people that said, hey, this is something we're facing. Why has it got to be this hard? We got together, we talked about it, we negotiated a bill with stakeholders that included health departments, IDPH, IDOA, etc. And we came away with something that made a huge impact for our farm and for farms like ours. Okay. So some of the things we're working on in Springfield this year, and that's why I'm so dressed up, I just got back from there, but we're looking for continued $2 million funding for local food infrastructure grant. We want to expand on-farm processing exemptions for both poultry farmers and red meat farmers, pass a statewide good food purchasing program, and improve Illinois Grocery Initiative grants, and have a dedicated official week for Soil Health Week. Some of the other priorities that we're not necessarily the lead on, but we're keeping our tabs on and helping out where we can, and this comes from a lot more of our emergency food allies, but Farm to Food Bank program, healthy school meals programs, increasing the SNAP minimum benefit in the state, is expanding SNAP eligibility for college students, and Medicaid 115 waiver, so where we know a lot of these chronic diseases are actually diet related, and let's get a Medicaid paid for prescription to go buy healthy food instead of medicine, and we're seeing good results from that. So the Local Food Infrastructure Grant, or LFIG, Tracy knows this better than I do, but when we had this a couple of years ago, it was funded for the first time. There was over 250 applicants, $23.5 million requested, and we could only fund 19 projects across the state. So the demand's there. What this does is it's that middle of supply chain type infrastructure. It's not necessarily direct farm inputs. It's not, it's not retail store, it's kind of that in between. And so what we saw from that is people applying needed cold storage, on-farm processing, refrigerated trucks, etc. That's the biggest demand. That's the headache, that's the hurdles that people are experiencing getting that food from the farm to you. And GFPP, or the Good Food Purchasing Program, touch a little bit on this one, but it's an initiative that would force the state to look at their procurement differently and use more of a value-based procurement instead of just low bid. There's already a GFPP program in Cook County and in Chicago, trying to make this statewide. We'd be one of the few states to do so. But you can see the values up there. I won't list them off. But supporting locally instead of supporting. I'm not going to name a name. But just it's you know the trucks. You know the trucks that stop by. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. All right. So of course, we don't just do state policy, we also work on federal policy. Some of the things we've done this past year, IL Eats, or LFPA, which is where farms like mine, we're blessed to be able to sell our products into food banks like Eastern Illinois, and get paid a fair price for it. That got frozen. There was an announcement of $14 million coming in the future. That got rolled back and canceled. So trying to work and navigate that for our members and advocate for it in the future. RFSI, Resilient Food Infrastructure, that was another food infrastructure grant program. There's talk it may be coming back. Fingers crossed. I'm going to wait till the ink dries before I make official announcements, but we've heard good things from DOA in the state and USDA at a federal level, so we're hopeful. And then lastly, working lands conservation, programs like that help farmers adapt regenerative practices that take care of our soil, make nutrient-dense food, etc. And a lot of this money is coming from the IRA, the American Rescue Plan, or Commodity Credit Corporation. So when you hear things going on in DC and these bill names being dropped, and this is changing this, that's kind of the places we're focusing on and how do we protect those funds. Other things that are happening in the food farm, USDA, FDA, all these places have received reduction in forces lately. We're talking about proposed SNAP cuts in the House's just passed their version of the reconciliation last night. It's going to the Senate. We'll see where that all shakes out. We're dealing with tariffs, we're dealing with food prices, big ag and food exceptions potentially from deportation practices, banned words, purging climate data, all these things are happening. So we're keeping our eye on trying to engage our members, trying to let people know how they can take action on those at the same time. A little bit more from that, I guess, yeah. 2018 Farm Bill, that's the next thing we're looking at. When's the Farm Bill coming at? When they have the reconciliation done. It's been extended till September. Hopefully we get a chance to do another one. Downside of if this reconciliation passes, the nutrition title, the commodity title, and one other title will be basically not have to be looked at again until 2030. So are we going to be able to get enough people to the table to truly negotiate a true farm bill when you have the three biggest portions of the farm bill already taken care of? That's a concern. What are we going to do about the research, the conservation, the other aspects of this farm bill that are truly important? And are those first three that are exempt from this, is that the way we really want it? Just the way the partisan makeup of Congress is, that's why they're trying to do this through reconciliation, because they only need a simple majority, otherwise they need 60 votes in the Senate. So that's why it's happening now. Why in Illinois do you have a big say in this? The 5 people on this screen here are Illinois representatives that serve in the House Ag Committee. The 2 that have stars by them, depending on where you're from in this area and the way the districts lie, you may be in Mary Miller's, you may be in Nikki Budzinski's, and then also down here we've got Senator Dick Durbin, who's on the Senate Ag Committee. No, he's not running for re-election, but we've still got time to change his mind, or influence him. So these are things we're looking at as an organization and our members' priorities. We want to reduce that income, economic inequality, bridge racial divides, end hunger, confront climate, improve nutrition and food safety, protect the farmers, the workers, and communities, and we want thriving local, regional, and food systems. So how can you guys get involved in that? That's our website. You can follow us on social media. You can subscribe to our newsletter. join us in actions. You'll see on that newsletter different ways of, hey, this bill is in committee today, tell your senator to vote yes. And you fill out a form, it's got your name, address, you click the link, the email's already pre-made, you just gotta hit submit. And then it does it. So we try and make it as easy. We know everyone's lives are busy. You care about this, take a few moments to do it. We appreciate it. It does make a difference. I was at a committee hearing this morning, and they read off the number of people that filed a witness slip in support. It was 38-0. They decided not to even have discussion on it, and it passed unanimously out of the Senate Ag Committee just because of those witness slips. So people taking action makes a difference. So again, we're continuing to communicate, educating, holding our members of Congress, USDA accountable when we're seeing things that, hey, this isn't what we want, getting our members involved, trying to get them to take action. We're working with NSAC, and we're trying to lay the groundwork for that next farm bill when it does come to fruition. No, you're fine. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. There's a lot happening lately. You might feel like you're on the right-hand side. There's unique things happening. There's so much urgency. This all feels unprecedented. You might feel like you're on the left side of that spectrum. Hey, I've seen this before. It's a long game. We have lessons that history can teach us. The truth is we're somewhere in the middle. And I don't care if that's this administration, last administration, anyway. We're always in that middle. There's lessons we can learn. We've been here before. Yeah, it might be new, but there's something we can build off of. And that's what we're trying to keep ourselves leveled in that respect. So, again, share your story, help us spread the word, get in contact with us, contact the legislators. You got questions on anything, happy to answer them. I tried to be very brief, overview, not dive into singular on anything, so let me know. Thanks.
I think this is back on, so thank you, Ed. Our next presenter is Bailey Parks Moore, a donor relations manager at Eastern Illinois Food Bank. If you don't know about Eastern Illinois Food Bank, they're the primary food source for food pantries, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, and other programs working to feed our neighbors facing hunger in over 20 counties in Eastern Illinois. The network of more than 160 feeding programs they serve benefits from the food bank by saving millions of dollars each year in food purchase and handling costs. So please join me in welcoming Bailey. We're going to try it over here. Are you okay for staying here? Perfect. So as Jacqueline said, my name is Bailey. I am the Donor Relations Manager at Eastern Illinois Food Bank. You can hop over to the next slide. Perfect. So essentially, we exist in Eastern Illinois, and we're calling that Eastern Illinois now, to alleviate hunger and nourish stronger communities. We, at any given time, per Map the Meal Gap statistics that just were dropped last week, are trying to meet the need of 140,000 neighbors in our area who are facing food insecurity. So our service area, as you can see, kind of for reference, we are south of Effingham, down in Clay County, north up to about Dwight, over near Peoria, and then have 5 counties that border the state line. And we serve about 16,300 square miles. So this right here you can see is our food bank here. For those that might not be familiar with our food bank, we are serving between 150 and 200 feeding programs. As Jacqueline said, they might be soup kitchens, backpack programs, school markets, your typical food pantry across the service area there. And we have been operating for over 40 years around this area. So we source food from a few different ways. I'm the donor relations manager, so I'm handling essentially all of our donor relations in the realm of our mid-level monetary donors, but also our food donors. So I will kind of go in depth about how we get our food. We receive donations, so we get cash and food donations from community drives, community gardens, other local food drives, and then we also partner with our retailers in this area, and we're over in McLean County and Vermilion County, and then pretty local, even as local as Dollar Generals as well, but we do have partnerships with national donors like Kraft Heinz. They manufacture here and have the largest plant in the country right here in Champaign. We're also partnering with Walmart, Sam's Club, Meijer, Costco, Target to help them rescue food so that it's not going into the dumpster and it's going to our food bank and then to the food pantries and then in the hands of neighbors. So we try our best to rescue all the food that we can. However, sometimes those donations don't always meet the need that we have in the area. So we will purchase if we have to. We try to source as much as we can from other grants, which we'll talk about. But if needed, we have different opportunities through grocery programs or other food banks to purchase food. And then, as I said, we get grant funding as well. So for us, we have a few different state and federally funded programs that we work with. LFPA, the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program, we'll go in depth about, and then Farm to Food Bank as well. And lastly, we get USDA product from, we call that commodities in the food banking terms, but we, to all Feeding America and Feeding Illinois partner food banks, get commodities that are sent from the federal government to the states and then to the food banks and in turn in the hands of neighbors. I'm ready for the next. Thank you. So we have a couple things that are happening obviously on the federal level that are impacting us locally here, and I'll just give you an incredibly brief version. If anyone has questions, I can try my best to answer some of those, but as you know, sometimes it's a little convoluted. So for us, we get USDA commodities. We get essentially, there's an allotment that goes to each food bank. So we are allotted funding through CCC, the Commodity Credit Corporation, and there's essentially two buckets of funding that we're pulling from, and then bonus loads. Our Commodity Credit Corporation, CCC Foods, we haven't seen really an impact in just yet. Those are monthly deliveries that are coming. We've ordered those almost a year in advance from the USDA program. We haven't yet seen cancellations in those loads, but the bonus loads have been canceled for us. So we're starting to see, as those were supposed to roll in, we're not receiving those foods. We have between April and December of this year had cancellations of a lot of frozen protein. We've seen chicken that's not coming now, pork, I think there's a little bit of beef and turkey, and then dairy. In terms of dairy, I think we've got milk and cheese that I've seen in cancellations. So for us, we're trying to figure out ways that we can pivot and still serve our neighbors. We haven't, seen a ton of depth in that just yet and how much that's going to impact us, but we are still working our hardest to try to serve those neighbors. And like I said, the CCC food is still coming, but in terms of LFPA, Ed mentioned that he's been a great partner of ours since March of last year, but we received funds during the first round of funding back in March of 2024, and we're set to receive some of the funding that was recently rolled back, the $14.8 million. But for our food bank, we focus primarily on purchasing protein. When we surveyed our neighbors and talked to our agencies, they really, protein's expensive and our neighbors are really looking to see that. So we focused and worked with quite a few local producers that could meet that need for us. Ed was one of them, and we have gotten ground pork and breakfast sausage from that program. And what we decided, and chicken, Ed's chicken as well, can't forget that. We have distributed mainly through our Food Mobile program, so the farmers would either drop off to us or we would pick up from the lockers and bring that back to the food bank, receive it, and put it in our inventory, and then we would distribute that directly to our neighbors through our Food Mobile program, which is throughout our service area. So we were choosing to distribute that way, but some of our agencies have also seen that product as we're kind of tailoring to the end of that program. Looking ahead here, Ed mentioned Farm to Food Bank. So Farm to Food Bank was originally a federal program that was written into the 2018 Farm Bill, and it worked really well. So the state of Illinois adopted their own rendition of that, and we have a state program that requires the food banks. So all 8 food banks in the state of Illinois were receiving those funds. It was just required that we provided a 50% match. So say if we got $50,000 from the state, we would then have to match that with $50,000, but we were allowed to purchase anything throughout the state of Illinois that was locally grown. So for our food bank, that looked like apples from an orchard down south, that was potatoes from a farmer in Kankakee County, and a lot of ground pork as well for the price that we could get and how we were meeting the nutritional needs of neighbors. And that currently is up in the air. We're still kind of waiting for the finalization of FY25, but then also hopefully May 31st, but first week of June, we will hear what is going to happen in FY26 regarding that funding. So we're still working with our legislators and doing as much advocacy as possible for our neighbors and for the agencies that are working to meet that need. I will say here, we have had I'm trying to think. Since 2022, we have seen that our pantries are serving twice as many neighbors as what they were then. So, compared 2025, or I think the most recent data we have is about 6 months ago to 2022, we are seeing that our agencies are really working hard to meet the need as it has doubled over time. With SNAP and everything that's come out this week about things, we are also anticipating to ramp up there. So just trying our best to prepare our agencies and figure out how to meet that need. It's obviously a constant work in progress and everything changes day by day when the House and Senate are in session, but overall really grateful that our community has come together and that we do have these programs. So for us right now, we're just using it as a really big advocating piece for our legislators that are in our area and are in DC as well. And then my contact information is on the next slide, but I do have business cards, so if anyone has questions, I am more than happy to have conversations about how the food bank is being impacted by this. And our final presenter is Julie Pride, who's our Public Health Administrator at the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District. And the CU Public Health District exists to center equity to ensure the health and safety of our community through education, preparedness, partnership, and policy. So please join me in welcoming Julie.
If I look like I've been rolling around, it's because I've been reading the budget today. I've been looking at things that maybe we may have to adjust on our end, and then later in the day, I got the Make America Healthy report, and I was trying to read that too. So I feel like I've been on a cheese grater a little bit because it's stressful. I do want to say that I find the Make America Healthy plan quite amusing because I've been in public health for 30 years, and some of the stuff that he is proposing in that, like we use too many pesticides. Okay, we've been talking about that for decades and decades. That we have too much processed food, and that especially low-income people are forced to eat this processed food more than people with more income. And then some of these things in here we have been talking about literally for decades, but they're overlords. When they go to implement some of these things, I think they'll find out that there will be a lot of pushback from their own supporters. So, I mean, some of the stuff, and also the dye. I mean, we've been trying to deal with some of these things, but maybe now that that's somebody else's idea, perhaps they will be, perhaps they'll be adopted. But I'm not very confident. Sorry about that. I got right in front of you. Okay, so what are we dealing with right now? We're dealing with mostly trying to figure out what is going on with the federal funds and grants. That's a big part of what we do, but what's even scarier to me is what's going on at the federal level as far as the science and as far as the policies and priorities that they're putting in there. It's pretty scary. We have a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and misguided science. So while some of the things in the Make America Healthy thing are delightful, messing with the vaccine system is not one that I support. So there's some things that I think are going to be kind of earth-shattering, things that a lot of us have not dealt with in our lives. Institutional changes, we're looking almost daily at things going on at the CDC, Food and Drug Administration, Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health, all the research that is going away into the diseases that we're all concerned about, and U.S. Department of Agriculture and the EPA. They're not swinging the way I would like to see them, let's just put it that way, most of the stuff. This is the kind of stuff that we're getting hit with like every day, and it's those of us who have worked in the field, or those of us, with souls, basically, we find this morally reprehensible. I cannot wrap my head around denying anyone food. I simply can't do that. And neither can a lot of my staff and a lot of people I work with. So in order to keep from going completely insane, what we're trying to do is, and you mentioned a lot of, working with, we do a lot of, I won't say boycotting, but I do a lot of boycotting, a lot of writing. I write letters almost every day. I get a lot of action alerts, and I write letters to members of Congress. almost every day. But what we're trying to do, and what I am trying so hard to do, is focus locally, because we have the most amazing community. And I know that we'll take care of our own community, however you define that, whether it's the county or whether it's CU or whatever. But I honestly can't let my mind get beyond that, because it's really too hard to think about. Oh, and I did want to talk about one of the things that we have that has been, I've loved going to public health. I've loved going to work almost every day of my 30 years there. But I always tell Awais Vaid from the Mosque and Islamic Center, they started the Friends of Champaign County Food Pantry, and which works obviously with you guys to get the food. And since that has started, I've actually loved going in there every day even more. And that is true, because I am seeing what we always knew was true, and that is people want healthy food. Families are ecstatic when they get healthy food, and no matter what anyone tells you, kids love fruit over anything. They will take fruit over anything. So, they just don't have access to it a lot of times. So anyway, where do we stand? So you can see that the biggest amount of money that we get is from intergovernmental agreements. So our property taxes encompass about 31% of our budget. We charge about 10% for services, that's Medicaid and various things that we get from that. Investment income, that's kind of an unusual thing, but we do have some of that. Licenses and permits, and then the biggest amount, our miscellaneous is because we lease out some of our space in our building. But we have 54% is intergovernmental agreements. So while most of our money comes from the state, a lot of that money is actually federal money that's coming through the state in grants. And what we cannot find out from anyone, because they don't know, is what is this going to look like when the dust settles? What money are we going to have? We are doing all this contingency planning right now to try to figure out, how we're going to fill these gaps when money goes away, and what are the services that we have to keep. You probably don't know this, but in order to be a certified health department in Illinois, you have to do 4 programs: safe food, safe water, septic, and communicable disease. That's it. And you have to have an administrator. That's it. And if you notice, a lot of our other community health departments, smaller ones around us, in some places that's all they have. One of our largest programs that we have some good news with is WIC. We actually received an increase in that this year. So that is super important. Does everyone know what WIC is? Women, Infant, and Children program. We actually received funding to add an additional 312 clients, and we don't think that we'll have any difficulty doing that at all. Because one of the things that makes sense if you think about it is when they start cutting SNAP, then that makes WIC all the more important. So, if you're getting SNAP and it's enough, which it rarely is, but you're getting SNAP for your kids and you're getting enough to get by, you're not going to come in and mess with all the program requirements, related to WIC, the education and all that stuff. But it is important. So right at this very moment, I can say, as of this morning, we only know of 2 grants that have been put on pause, and we're committed right now to continuing all services, for as long as we can. But we have the one that another one I don't understand, USDA Farm to School grant opportunity canceled. I mean, that is just so short-sighted, and who does that make happy? Who's happy with that, Who's like, let's take food out of kids' mouths and screw the farmers, But apparently that is a thing. Local food purchase assistance program has ended, and the local funds are uncertain. We're pretty good about being able to go out and look for alternative sources, because in 30 years you can imagine we've had a lot of different funding. Nothing quite this unusual, but we do know how to go to foundations and other places. But a lot of the foundations that public health gets money from are actually getting federal money sometimes to push a program forward. So we're a little concerned about that. Okay, you can go to the next one. What's that one? So again, these are the things that make me happy. We've got our governor, who has always been extremely supportive of public health related programs and all the allied ones around that. We have IDPH, still a great partner. We have Healthy Champaign County, which is something that I am extremely happy that we have in our community. Because to get that many people together that are pulling on the rope on the same direction is super helpful. Annual Feeding Champaign County Food Summit, that thing is amazing. If you haven't been to it, I suggest you go to it. I've been to conferences all over the country, and this one rivals a lot of them, and it's a day-long conference. And the food access coordinator, I have a little question mark right there because we're just trying to see where funds are going to be for that. But we do hope to have that because it will be something that, again, public health needs to get out of the business of service provision and more into the more macro level stuff. So certainly coordinating things that are existing in the community is part of that to get more efficiencies. Okay, and that's all I have. I am easy to get a hold of. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can do that. There's my email address. There is my desk number. And, I'm just happy that we have so many people, like I said, that are interested in making sure that our community stays safe, stays fed, feels connected. Jubilee Cafe, Daily Bread, we have such amazing things here. So I try to focus on those and not what's swirling around outside of us. Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna open up for questions. I'm gonna ask Tracy if you can help me coordinate a question microphone for the audience, if that's okay. And so we're open to any type of questions. If you don't know who to direct it to, I'm sure Ed, Bailey, and Julie can duke it out up here just to figure that out. But then also you're welcome to direct to anyone. So just if you want to raise your hand, we'd appreciate that, and Tracy will come to you.
So I guess I'd be curious to know, in the context of what appears to be blatant cruelty, what are persuasive arguments that you're experiencing when you make the call to the congressman, when you make the call to the state rep and say, this is nuts? What twists on the argument do you make that seems to at least scratch the surface of resistance for a Mary Miller? Is there any trick to that?
I'll just jump in and say Mary Miller is very interested in organic fraud imports. If you have that, he's going to be in. Organic fraud imports.
So I will say that the messaging changes a little bit. Like if I'm talking, and this is broad strokes, and I hate using broad strokes, but I'm just going to say if I'm talking to a Republican member of Congress and I'm talking about something like LFPA being canceled, I'm probably going to hit them more on the lines of the rural economic development it's doing. If I'm talking to a Democratic member of Congress, I'm talking about the impact we're making on communities and feeding people. So the story's the same, it's just my messaging and what I'm highlighting with them changes.
Yeah, I would somewhat echo that. For us, we have pretty good partnerships with our local and federal representatives. And for us, a lot of times, obviously we exist to alleviate hunger, but what does that mean and how are we doing it? So a lot of times for us, it's sharing the stories and the impacts that we have. I try my best to get out into the food pantries as often as possible and hear from neighbors on, stories of ways that they're impacted. And so for us, it's really just figuring out the best ways that we can communicate that to our legislators, sharing stories of kids having a birthday cake or of Daily Bread Soup Kitchen and what's going there, or I'll volunteer sometimes at Friends of Champaign County, and sharing those stories for us really is what we tried to hit home with our legislators.
And the stories really do make the biggest impact. the stories really do make the biggest impact. Like when you can, red, blue, I don't care, but you can say, hey, this person in your district felt this because of that. Like that hits home more than any data point or dollar sign I can throw up there.
And, yeah, I'm not really a good one for this, but I just, and we were talking about this before, I can't, how do you sell someone on the fact that people shouldn't go hungry? I mean, that seems to be so basic that it's hard for me to even, like wrap my head around that. And it's like, I don't know. There's not a lot I can say about that. I'll just say that somebody sent me something from Mary Miller, which was a X post or whatever you call them, and it was her saying that the first person at Alcatraz needs to be Anthony Fauci. So I'm not going to waste a lot of my limited air capacity on that. So I think there are some people that you're not going to. And I'm a health department, so we're already like the evil thing. So I'll leave it to them to. I'm sorry that I'm the Debbie Downer of the group, but like I said, I have been reading that all day, and I can't pick it out of myself. It's still swirling.
This is a question for Julie. How would you propose convincing young people to enter the field of public health now, given the optics, given the funding black eye that's out there, some reputational damage, whether you're on whatever side of the spectrum that you're on? What does the future of public health look like in terms of getting young people who are considering those degrees, undergraduate and graduate degrees, and moving into the field?
Yeah, I do get asked to talk about that a lot, and I'm still very optimistic. But it's going to take, the history of public health. So I'm also a social worker. The history of social work, the history of public health, the history of union, all of that came up together, and we're fighting we're getting ready to fight the same battles of the Gilded Age, which just is so weird to me. But I mean, I think that we've actually swung that far back. I do think, you're going to have public health. It's going to continue to exist because when it gets right down to it, it is extremely cost effective. I mean, prevention is cost effective. So there's a lot of arguing over, how to do various things, but we have a very, very, very long history with things like fluoridation in the water and all the research behind the benefits of that. And Florida and Utah are going to prove to be examples of what happens when you stop that. And there will be data collected on that. We've already seen what happens when cities have done it in the past. It does not end well. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to suffer. Same thing with vaccination and the declining rates. We're in a position now where we're going to see possibly measles become endemic in the United States again. Purely out of our own doing, right? Because it was gone. What I like to do and again, I realize I'm in a special community, in a special area, and we're a district, we're a public health district, but I like to bring entire classes to public health and have them take the tour and have them see what we do and how we do it and who's doing it, and it usually gets them kind of excited about it because we really do view the whole person. And so that lets us bring over social workers, vet med who are going into MPH programs. I do think things like the Epidemic Intelligence Service, which has been being brutalized at the CDC, that's going to come back. Again, these things are amazing, and we have the best system in the entire world. We have one of the crappiest medical systems, but we have a really good public health system. Big picture, we really do. And the CDC is the authority in the world, more so than the World Health Organization anyway. They look to them. So there are plenty of opportunities out there. And no matter what it's called, there are going to need to be public health people in these different, positions. So I don't look for the profession to go away. It'll go through an ugly period, and then, COVID got a lot of people interested in the field of public health, which was a little surprising, but all of a sudden they were finding out what is contact tracing, what is this, what are some of the things that we do, because we are really pretty much a hidden profession. So.
Ed, would you answer the same question about farmers? You're at the young end of the demographic. What's the future for young farmers under the circumstances of export controls, all the other things?
Yep. So I'm not an expert. He asked me basically answer the same question, but in the context of farmers. I'm on the younger end of farmers. Average age of a farmer in the state of Illinois, I want to say, is 65, I think, according to the last study I looked at. I think nationally it's like 59. So we're past the worst part of that, or worse than the worst. So policies we're looking at on a federal landscape, because that's where a lot of this starts, is that farm bill, and so things that address land access on a federal level, how are we doing that? Also on a state level, there's some conservation easement work that's going on at the state capitol that potentially we'll see if it passes, but it would create a fund within the Department of Ag to put conservation easements on ground, and then in essence, just by having that conservation easement, it lowers the value of the ground, so it makes it more accessible for people to buy and start. Things like local food infrastructure grant, that allows farmers to scale up, to buy that infrastructure. I know I wasn't an LFIG recipient. I didn't apply. I felt kind of wrong applying for a grant that we advocated for. It didn't quite sit right with me. But I'll probably do it in the future now. But I know 2 years ago I received a grant from American Farmland Trust in October of 2023. About 2 weeks later, Bailey calls me and goes, "Hey, I got this LFPA program that we're working on." And I called back to American Farmland Trust and I said, "Hey, can I change my grant application? I know you guys have already awarded me, but I just got this phone call. Here's the story. I need to scale up." And they let me do it. And without that funding, basically the first 3 months of what I grew and delivered to Eastern Illinois Food Bank would have been for free to pay for the infrastructure that I would have had to have to do it. So things like that, and it shows the importance, farming in general is typically, heavy labor, low margin, take what you get. So it can be tough. On the tariff side of things, I'm not the expert on that. It does make me concerned from a rising food cost aspect. When you look at companies, I'll name a company this time, like Driscoll's, who every pack of raspberries you buy at the grocery store comes from Driscoll's. 80% of what they grow comes from foreign countries. So will that make my raspberries that I grow at home more price competitive? Maybe. Will I benefit from that? Maybe. Can I grow it at a scale that's going to make a difference? Absolutely not. Can the next guy start and do that? And Tracy can tell you just as well as I can, perennials take a long time to get started and they cost a lot of money, so there's the management to it. So we'll see how it all shakes out. I don't have the right answer, but we're constantly looking for those solutions, and if you think you have an idea on it, you should join us and help us figure them out. Sorry, had to make a pitch.
Given the circumstances where we're facing a situation where we're going to have to do more with less, do you think there's any hidden stones that we haven't turned over? I can think for one that I lived in an area that had a lot of ethnic markets, and they would serve pretty much every cut of an animal, organs, tongue, tail, testicles, whatever have you. And I'm thinking at the farms you've worked at, are those all just going to waste? Are they getting thrown into a compost pile, or are they ready for the shelves and so on and so forth?
I can speak to that a little bit on a personal level. I raise chickens.
Right.
You want to buy chicken feet or chicken livers? I got them all. I got a freezer full of them. Let me know when you want to pick them up. Those cuts have not, the demand for them is not there. And I'll say when I used to do the Urbana Farmers Market here, I couldn't keep chicken feet in stock. Now that I'm not doing the Urbana Farmers Market, I can't give them away. Last month I did a special on my chicken livers. It was $1 a pound. I said, you better be using them for fish bait. And that's how I got rid of them. I just need to make some space. So there are some unturned stones there. But what we see on a nationwide or global scale is a lot of those specific cuts, they get exported. They're going into different markets. So some of these tariffs, et cetera, may impact that. We'll see how that shakes out too. The other thing that you'll see too is, again, chicken example, the processor that I use in the state, there's only 4 that do poultry for farmers like me, so that shows you how limited it is. But they don't even allow me to get gizzards. It's not because they don't have the equipment, it's not because they don't know how to do it, it's because they don't have the labor force. And it's the first thing that's cut. I haven't been able to get gizzards from my poultry processor in over 2 years. So just things like that, how all these little things impact it. But yeah, there's definitely unturned stones, and I think things like, not so much to the organ meat, et cetera, but there's markets that we're just starting to tap with some of these programs, like LFPA. One question I want to ask every farmer that's participated in that is, had this been a 2 or a 3 year program, what impact would that have made to your farm? Where would you be 2 years from now if you had this funding source? So many of these programs, we often see them for 1 year funding, and just as they're starting to hit their stride, the rug's pulled out. And it's hard to ramp up production, and I'm sure Bailey, I mean, these guys have been awesome to work with, but they're used to getting a truck from Meijer or Sam's Club or Costco, and I'm coming in here with like 10 boxes of chicken. So there's unique ways that they have to manage what they're receiving from me that they're not used to, and we're all adapting, we're all growing, we're all coming together, and now it's over. So just advocating for those long-term programs, and that's how we really build that resiliency, open that market, allow people to scale and find things.
Yeah, I would also agree with what Ed said in terms of LFPA for us. When we were itching and just ready to go when LFPA was turned on when we got that announcement, but it's also terrifying to ask that of a producer without knowing if that funding is going to come. So for us, we weren't going to make any purchases until that funding came in. We knew that for sure. Now that we are in the last 5 weeks of the program, we're also trying to figure out how to spend down those dollars, but not ask our producers to overproduce. So that is, we live in the area of innovation. We're trying to meet the need of hundreds of thousands of people every year. So LFPA for us has been a challenge in that way, but it's also helped us make connections and work with producers like Ed and some of our others. And I would say, in another sense of innovation for us, we're constantly working with retailers, with restaurants, with other partnerships that we can to increase awareness of it. You might not think about it, but when you're going to a grocery store and I don't know, maybe like a 12-pack of soda is damaged, you're not going to want to buy the box because there's 11 cans in it, but we, as a food bank, work really hard to make our retailers aware of the fact that they can donate that. So for us, it's just trying to appeal to everyone and get out there and be as innovative as possible and to save as many pounds as possible. So it's not necessarily a production agriculture side of things, but still in the world of food distribution, how we're meeting the needs of our neighbors by working with our retail partners.
I missed a major thing I wanted to say. So you were asking for unturned stones. The state of Illinois imports 95% of the food it eats. We export over 50% of our corn and soybeans out of the state. Flip that stone over and we can solve a lot of problems. And that's not me bashing corn and soy or anybody that farms it. I'm just saying that there's systemic things that have caused that to happen, and how do we rewind that yo-yo?
I think on like page 800 and something in the budget, there was something about Soylent Green factories, but I'm not sure.
I get grins from the older people in the crowd. Soylent Green factories, you're too young. You don't get it.
Ed, I think you mentioned on-farm processing, and that's the thing you're working on. How would that impact what we've all been talking about?
Yeah, so I just mentioned that there's only 4 poultry processors in the state of Illinois that are either state or USDA inspected. For me, I live 50 minutes north of here. I drive to Arthur every time I have poultry processed. It's 90 miles. I'm one of the lucky ones. I've got a farmer friend that lives an hour and a half farther north than me and makes that trip because they're the closest one to him. So what we're trying to do with this on-farm processing exemption, Illinois state law currently, you can process 5,000 head on farm, but you can only sell or deliver those chickens on the farm. We live in an Amazon Prime society, as I like to tell people, that it's convenience-based. You got to be able to meet the consumer where they're at. So what we're trying to do with this bill is increase that annual cap from 5,000 to 7,500, and it also allows sales to take place at farmers markets. So it's still not going to happen in a retail store, still not going to happen in a restaurant, but by just allowing that farmers market sale, now you have an exemption that's viable. Because currently the exemption without having an additional sales avenue off the farm just isn't truly viable. And what we're doing is not novel, it's not new. The state of Indiana, you can process up to 20,000 head. You can sell wholesale, you can sell to hotels, restaurants, institutions. Iowa, you can do the same. Missouri, you can do the same. Kentucky, you can do the same. 40 out of 50 states allow 20,000 head. 37 of them allow sales to third-party retailers. So that's what we initially shot for, was to get us, I joked, that let's get in parity with our neighbors instead of being a parody of our neighbors. But so when we worked with some stakeholders, we found, hey, we're asking for too much right away. We'll take this 7,500, we'll take farmers markets, and in a couple of years when we've proved we can do it safely and that we've addressed these concerns, all right, now let's go and get that, that increase, let's go get some wholesale opportunities, because, I think about it, of those 4 processors that do poultry in the state, one of them does about 85%. Heaven forbid a meteor falls out of the sky tomorrow, my business is done because I can't get processing. And that's not just an Illinois problem. I call processors in other states, King's Poultry in Ohio, they're booked for the year. Montesee, Wisconsin, booked for the year. All these places, it's just a nationwide problem. So.
Do you want to talk about the wait time,
Yeah. Yeah. So the other portion of that bill too, besides from poultry, is current state law requires you to own an animal for 30 days prior to harvesting it for your own household use. This law, if passed, which it passed out of the Senate Ag Committee this morning, and it passed on the Senate floor unanimously this afternoon on my drive here. So now it goes back to the House. Hopefully we can push it across the finish line before May 31st and they all take their summer vacation. But no, so current state law, you have to own an animal for 30 days to even harvest it for your own household use, which is crazy to me. We're going to eliminate that. We're one of only 2 states in the nation that require that. So what that will allow is farmers who want to sell a whole animal to somebody who wants to process it themselves, that they can do so. Where I see this being especially impactful is sheep, goats, religious, ethnic, cultural markets. I've unknowingly violated this law like 5 times in my life because I'd buy my pigs off a neighbor who I knew, trusted, raised good pork. I brought it home and processed it myself. Should have been a $5,000 fine every time if I'd have got caught.
What's the point of that? I know the law. What's the
Why, well, what was the rationale behind it? I don't.
And who's actually enforcing?
And IDOA is tasked with enforcing it, and if you ask them, I have 100% certain. If you ask them off the record, I have 100% certainty they can tell you it's impossible to enforce. If you ask them on the record, of course, they'll say they're doing the best they can. And that's not their fault. I mean, you can't get them to put them in a bad spot, but no. So I think that'll open up some avenues for, like I said, especially those religious, cultural deals where, hey, and I think that's important too when we talk about food access. There's not too many grocery stores you can go into and find cuts of goat, find cuts of lamb. That's just not really normal in our society as a whole. And so you have these communities of people that want to eat, what's culturally relevant to them. They go to the grocery store, they can't get it. They go to a farm and you say, that's illegal. What? What are we doing? So if the least we can do is allow them to buy it off the farm, I think we're doing all right. I mean, we've got more room to grow there, but let's get this first step.
In one way or another, you both talked about the special relationships that you have with people in our communities and how those relationships create possibilities and opportunities and some levels of comfort to continue doing what you're doing. What makes those work? Where do they come from? What nurtures them? What about those relationships is scalable to other organizations and efforts so that we can strengthen those partnerships at the local level as you've defined it to do even better, do even more good.
I think for us, it's just a passion for what we do and communication with others. Ed and I got connected because I did a quick Google search and found Duchick Ranch, and then it turned up that I went to high school with his brother-in-law, and so from there we were able to kind of work together, and now we're in the same circles pretty much all the time or anywhere that we are in Springfield, or we know lots of people out in DC. So for us, it's just figuring out ways that we can both help each other kind of progress what we're working on. Ed has been an incredible partner, and he hasn't said this, but an incredible partner to some of our food pantries in Iroquois County. And so for us, it's just that he knows how passionate we are about what we do, and he has also gotten behind that. And I would say that I'm the same for what he does, and we've had some crossover, some checking in on how his bills are going or what he's doing. So I think that for me translates into a lot of relationships that we have. Sola Gradia is the same way. We're trying our best to help them, and they are working really, really hard to help serve our neighbors, and we're incredibly appreciative of that. But that's in so many different areas. There's overlap with Free Friday Market, and we work with CUPHD to provide ground pork or ground beef to them every Friday. And so for us, there's just a lot of crossover in our community, but really strengthening those through communication, and we check in a lot and try to help each other the best that we can, because ultimately we're all working towards the same goal.
I'd say it's just finding that community of people that care about the same issues you do. You know, if it's from a food access standpoint and nutrition standpoint, it's probably feeding Champaign County. You know, if it's more from a farm level focus, maybe it's the Illinois Stewardship Alliance, maybe it's the Land Connection. Finding those people that, hey, let's put our heads together and we can solve big things when we do. You know, because that's where the best solutions come from. Diversity of thought, multiple stakeholders, everybody in the same room, all working towards the same goal, and that's when you move mountains. So.
I just think that we have a lot of people with the same, we have a lot of shared values, and that makes it easier. But another thing that I think all of us do, that I've worked with, including you all, is educating the community on what it is we do and how we do it. And you know, I always use this example of my staff. When we first started growing a little garden there, we had like 3 little beds there, and I was dragging in some carrots from the garden to put up on the table, and I had a couple of staff say, "Ew, gross, what are those?" And I was like, "What are these?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "They're carrots." And they were like, "Ew, why are they so big?" I said, "Because they're carrot size." You know, that's what a carrot looks like. They had never seen anything that wasn't a quote-unquote baby carrot. And then they became they were also disgusted, why were they so dirty? Like, well, come out here and I'm going to show you where, you know, so we can't, just because we live in the Midwest, in Illinois, with some of the best soil, we can't assume people know this. We all have different experiences, and so we just need to continue to educate, which is why I love about what you guys do, a lot of the education stuff, to get more people interested and more people growing. We have staff now who are interested in having gardens at their home who have never in their entire life. So just, you know, little things, and they just keep building.
I tried to grow a Twinkie tree, but I can't. Dang, really dang. That makes sense.
Any other questions?
Anyone who's interested in reading the bill that I obsessively talk about that passed today, New York Times has made a free downloadable the entire thing today. So you can just Google New York Times House budget and you will get link to click the whole thing if you are so inclined.
A couple of plugs. One, I really like what Ed had to say about becoming a member supporter of the Illinois Stewardship Alliance and the Land Connection, because they both have really excellent newsletters. So if you don't have time to be watching all of these issues on your own, you can get a curated newsletter with all of the quick topics and also how to be an engaged citizen and make really important efforts with very little time. I mean, I know from Soul Variety Farms' perspective that our membership in multiple caucuses of Illinois Stewardship Alliance allows for us to use our precious minutes to be effective advocates and know when to tell a story, when to show up in Springfield, when to go to DC, when to call Representative Brzezinski. It really matters that we all don't have to do this work on our own and that there are groups that are curating this information for us. So thank you to ISA and also to the Land Connection. The other piece is, if you know something that might be of use to someone else, to just use your voice to elevate it, because still so many people in our community don't know about the Champaign Farmers Market or the Amana Farmers Market, where if you're a SNAP user, you can get your dollars to go 2 to 3 times as far, and that's earmarked for healthy food. That's a tremendous way to stretch limited food dollars. Also, I want to give a shout out to both SOLA and Solidarity Gardens, because if you are a gardener and you are able to grow additional extra food, we're a drop site at the farm 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can drop your extra produce off and we'll make sure that it gets out to the folks that we're donating to 5 to 6 days a week. Solidarity Gardens is coordinating so many different community and school gardens. So if you have time, even if you don't know how to garden or if you want to learn how to, you can work with other gardeners to grow more food that will get to people in our own community that can be donated through the food bank, through Soul Variety Farm, Jubilee Cafe, Daily Bread Soup Kitchen. There's no limit to how much you can give if you plug into an existing program. So I would just encourage you to, read the newsletters, come to events like this, tell others that might be rich in one way or another, whether it's dollars or connections or extra hours in their day. There's a lot of ways that we can be serving each other.